Thank you very much, Dr. Tahir, for the kind introduction. And also, firstly, thank you very much to the RCSS and the entire team for putting this together, this important and timely forum, and also for giving an opportunity to me at Hashtag Generation to present our insights also related to technology and peace. So I'm also grateful to all the esteemed panelists who came before me because of the foundation that they had laid, especially one in terms of the understanding or laying the foundation that peace, that we recognize peace from a more holistic lens, rather than just saying or identifying peace to be one without just of conflict, but also second, Ms. Jayakumar for her presentation about gender peace and its importance. And I think both of those have a great direct connection to where we work in terms of technology and peace. So when it comes to technology, it's also a very broad area. And especially in the last 2 years with the COVID-19 pandemic, there has been an accelerated impact or effect of technology in our day-to-day lives. It has, while technology has had an impact overall, it has come and become a part and parcel of our lives in a very, very accelerated manner over the past 2 years. And we have spent most of our lives online, trying to get things running. And just as Dr. Tahir mentioned, technological spaces have allowed many of us and opened many of us channels and avenues when things have not been as open previously. Right. So when the formal or more recognized conventional channels have been closed, technology has provided space for informal methods of communications and transformation to come in. But also this has also led into many challenges. And I want to touch upon a few key areas that we as Astro Generation has identified and maybe that we thought should be important for all of us to engage. One, of course, is in social media. So according to numbers or statistics that we've identified, that there has been a massive increase in the active social media users globally and also in Sri Lanka. In Sri Lanka alone, the year 2020 saw an increase of 23.4% of active social media users. And of course, the COVID-19 pandemic has played a great role in it, but this also shows a continuous increase and that more and more people will be using technological platforms and will be active on these platforms. And as hashtag generation, we do look for trends of content that of narratives that are running on social media platforms, and we have identified an increasing surge of harmful content that has potential to lead to even direct and physical violence to communities and have a direct impact on the peace in communities to come in. Right. So one of the areas that we've seen was the increase of hate speech, especially to religious and ethnic minorities, targeting religious and ethnic minorities in Sri Lanka. There's been an increase in hate speech over the last 2 years, and this is something that we flag on. And another thing that has been increasing, which will also connect very much with gender peace, is the increasing amount of sexual and gender-based violence that we are identified on online platforms, especially on social media platforms, including Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok, as well as into messaging applications like WhatsApp, Telegram, and other forums. So this is one of the key highlights that we've seen. And the third area that we really want to push is the use of misinformation, or even what we sometimes call fake news. It could be for political or even other motives, but we have identified that disinformation has been a tool that has been used very predominantly on online platforms. And the impact here is that all of these harmful content just spreads within a matter of seconds. I mean, earlier, if a newspaper took days to go or TV took time to communicate among communities, now social media, over a matter of seconds, it has the ability to communicate a message to millions of users and has a lasting impact. The second aspect that I want to highlight is about freedom of expression. Yes, while social media and digital space have brought across many challenges that I've highlighted, it has also been a platform, like we said earlier, that provides a voice to the voiceless, a provide of space for those who have not been given space by former channels to really speak out. And this is important, and even many of us, including myself and even as hashtag generation, we use social media platforms to speak out, to raise voices against matters that we think are important. But right now, there's wider discussion about the need for regulation for social media platforms and even other digital platforms. So how do we recognize, or where does these regulations come in, and how do we make sure that these regulations are inclusive, especially for younger audiences who are coming into these platforms? So this is a very important dialogue and discourse that we think should matter, and that regulation should be focusing on making social media spaces more inclusive and safer, and not as a tool to restrict freedom of expression and freedom of free speech. Third aspect that I want to cover is about digital security, because right now, as all of us have now moved into these technological spaces, most of us have our own cyber identities, and technological spaces has so much of data that relates to our personal lives, that relates to our behaviors, our interests, what we like, what we share, what we comment, and all of these. Sometimes we can even say that these platforms have data that is so much more, like they might even know more about ourselves than our own selves, right? So how does this data come into play? How is this data used? And how do we also ensure privacy for those who use these platforms, right? So digital security is another very important aspect that we wanted to highlight, and that especially young audiences, because at times we don't take necessary steps to take care of these, the take necessary steps that we can be taken to ensure the security on these digital platforms. So digital security is the other area of concern that we want to highlight, and that should be taken very seriously, especially by the younger audiences. And this comes also from individual point of view as well as from an organization or movement point of view as well. So that maybe to conclude my small intervention, I would highlight on three key areas or three key necessities that all of us can engage in, or next steps that we can take, as it can be as organizations at regional level, it can be as younger groups that are focusing on these areas, but to ensure that there's the better use of technology, and to ensure that there is critical engagement on these platforms to ensure there's holistic peace. One is the promotion of critical thinking and digital media literacy. And as hashtag generation, we believe that critical thinking is effective, important in any tool or any platform that we use, but especially when coming on social media, to identify how social media platforms have been misused or are being used to promote certain agendas, identities, and even to use certain information to harm others. So therefore, critical thinking is an important aspect, and skills-based programs promoting critical thinking as well as promoting digital media literacy is important to all audiences, and especially for young audiences who are more and more commonly using digital platforms. Secondly, we propose inclusive policy discourse that engages younger audiences, making sure that youth are also part of these discussions and they have a voice, and I've also been part of these consultations, especially when there are discussions related to regulation on social media or other digital platforms. And thirdly and finally, the point that I want to highlight is that there are these technological platforms. These are more private corporations that are going to come in, and they are more profit-oriented organizations. But what is the approach, or what is the discourse that we are going to have to make sure that these technological innovations and infrastructure become more and more inclusive and safer spaces for, especially for vulnerable and marginalized groups, including youth, women, and other gendered minorities. So these are the few points that I wanted to highlight. Thank you very much again for giving me the space to share. Thank you.